Hello, GW political junkies, and welcome to another episode of Colonial Crossfire. I'm Michael Schnell. It was a debate for the books for so many reasons. On Tuesday night, President Trump and Vice President Biden shared the stage in the first presidential debate of the general election season, kicking off the final sprint to November. Podiums were socially distant. Candidates ditched the handshake, and the spin room was non-existent. But there was certainly no shortage of contentious moments. Throughout the 90-minute debate, the candidates went head-to-head on the Supreme Court, COVID, the economy, race and violence in cities, the integrity of the election, and each other's record. Everything was on the table, and the two men surely did not hold back. The candidates spoke over each other, and moderator Chris Wallace of Fox News at times lost control. The night was heavy in insults and light in policy proposals. Now, there's a ton to break down, and lucky for us, we're joined by two of GW's finest rising politicians. Joining us on the left, Madeline Goldstein, a sophomore broadcasting from Washington, D.C., majoring in international affairs with a concentration in global public health and minoring in classical and ancient Near Eastern studies and criminal justice. Maddie is the vice president of political affairs for the GW College Democrats. And on the right, Patrick Burland, a junior broadcasting from Woodbridge, Connecticut, majoring in political science. Patrick is the director of public relations for the GW College Republicans. Thank you both for joining us. All right, so I want to start off with general thoughts, general takeaways from the debate. Patrick, we'll go to you first. What are your thoughts on the debate? Who do you think the winner was, the loser, and what do you think of the demeanor of the candidates on Tuesday?
Well, I don't think I'm alone in saying I think the debate was a disaster. The president constantly interrupted Vice President Biden. I thought that it wasn't so much that Joe Biden won, so much as that he didn't lose. He allowed Trump to implode on himself during much of the debate. I'm surprised that the vice president didn't trip over the low bar that the Trump campaign set for him.
Maddie, what were your thoughts on the debate, takeaways, winner, loser, and the demeanor of the candidates?
I know a lot of networks were saying this right after the debate, and I completely agree that I don't think there was a winner. I think the American people really lost last night, because I think that with everything going on with the coronavirus pandemic and with, the racial resentment going on, especially, being heightened right now with police brutality, and of course, the economic recession we're currently facing, I think that the American people are just dying for leadership right now. And I think that we basically saw two 70-year-old men unable to have a respectful exchange of ideas. And I think that in that case, as Patrick said, I think that there definitely was one party who was the one interrupting, talking over the other party, challenging the moderator. Even when Chris Wallace would try to ask Trump questions, he would either, deflect or attack Chris back. But I mean, even more than just the decorum of Biden and Trump, I think the most important thing to take away from it is that Donald Trump refused to condemn white supremacy on live television. And, Republicans have been saying, oh, well, he's condemned it in the past. But in that moment, he had an opportunity. He was given that opportunity, and he didn't do it.
We are going to get to that in a little bit, but I want to go to something first that you both discussed. And Patrick, I want to throw it to you. You both discussed that the president was badgering Vice President Biden throughout the debate. He was interrupting him at times. He was fighting with the moderator and with his opponent. Do you think that this was the president's strategy going in to sort of try to throw Biden off his feet, to try to throw him off his game? And do you think this was a success, or do you think the president came off as a little too aggressive?
I mean, the president told us that he wasn't going to prepare for the debate, much to the chagrin of, not only the people on his team, but the American people. I think Maddie is absolutely correct. The American people were the biggest losers of this debate. I mean, you have 7 million coronavirus cases. You have 28,000 people just getting laid off by Disney. And this is no economy where people can really, have a margin for error. I think that he went in very aggressive. I think the end result was Joe Biden really couldn't land too many critical blows as a result of the constant interruption, but I don't think that anyone was well served by that. As you said in the intro, the debate was very light on substance. I think a lot of people were watching this debate looking forward to seeing what the next 4 years would be like under either of these candidates' administrations, and they got nothing. It was a load of interruption and nonsense, and I don't think anyone was well served by it. So I think I'd agree. The American people were the biggest losers of this debate.
So I want to get to another question about this debate. Last week, there was an NBC News and Wall Street Journal poll that found that just 11% of the eligible electorate remained undecided of who they were going to vote with. That's such a small sliver of the eligible electorate. So on Tuesday night, Maddie, I'll throw this to you first. Do you think that the debate swayed any of these undecided voters? Do you think that 11% shrunk after seeing the performance on Tuesday night?
I think that at this late in the game in almost any election, most people are decided. I think that especially right now, because U.S. politics is so polarized, I think that Democrats are going to vote for Democrats, Republicans are going to vote for Republicans. I think at this point it's going to come down to the independents, and I think that we're seeing in the polls right now that Biden is taking back that independent lead in those swing states, and so I definitely think that after this debate, Trump did not do himself any favors by the decorum just drew that stark distinction between the elder statesman running for president and the toddler, in my opinion. And I think that that's definitely going to possibly influence some independent voters and some undecided voters to sway towards Biden.
So you do think that the debate on Tuesday did do well in sort of helping these undecided voters, that 11%, to choose a side when they go to the polls in November?
I mean, it's always hard to say because, polling is never perfect and undecided voters go both ways every single year. But I mean, from my perspective and from the results I've seen on different, news outlets and different polls, I definitely think that, yes, I think that some independent voters are leaning towards Biden simply because they don't appreciate Trump's mannerism.
Patrick, we are a little over 30 days away from this election, and just 11% of voters are undecided. Do you think that on Tuesday, any of those voters picked a side after seeing the performance by both candidates?
I think that if you were leaning one way, you're probably going to continue to go that way. I don't think this debate necessarily moved the needle amongst decided voters or even leaning voters. I think the true toss-up voters are going to be very confused about, why they should look at the president for their, to vote for in the November election. But equally, I don't think a lot of undecideds got to hear about some of the unanswered questions about Vice President Biden. I mean, he didn't have to answer follow-ups on, his position on stacking the courts. He didn't have to answer follow-ups on his claim that he handed over a booming economy. He didn't have to answer questions about his tax cuts, about his own coronavirus plan. He didn't have to really drill down about his vision. It was mainly just a back and forth between two old people shouting over each other.
I disagree.
Maddie, you care to respond, please?
Yes, I disagree. I think that although there were a lot of interruptions, unfortunately, which again, primarily due to Donald Trump's lack of respect for the rules that his campaign previously agreed to, I think that Biden had some important messages and some important moments. I think, first of all, the way the debate ended really draws a differentiation between the two candidates. Biden ended the debate by saying, please vote. It's important. It's your civic duty. It's, you have the voice here. And it ended with Trump continuing to instill fear in people and saying that the election's a fraud and, saying that it's not going to end well, which is what he said. And I also think that, he did talk about testing. He talked about his plan for coronavirus and that if he had been president, he would have, wanted to do more nationwide testing. And he's talked about, opening the economy in a safe way, not just, the snap of fingers, opening the economy because it's going to benefit you and your friends who are profiting from that. So I disagree that I definitely think Biden had moments, especially, again, also I want to add, talking about his son, Hunter, and his other son, Beau, when, of course, Trump decided to just stoop to such a low level and attack both Beau and Hunter, but more specifically Hunter, and, calling him a cocaine addict, saying he got dishonorably discharged from the military, which just isn't true. And then instead of when Trump went low, Biden went high. Biden turned to the camera and said, yes, my son had a drug addiction and he's overcome it and I'm proud of him. And I think that in that moment, Biden was able to normalize drug addiction in that way that a lot of people at home are going to connect with, especially for me as a Kentuckian. Opioid addiction is one of the biggest issues facing our state. It has been for a long time. I think Biden definitely had some moments where he was able to say his stance on things. I do agree, Patrick, though, that he did dodge the question about packing the courts, but I think that honestly that was a smart move and from my perspective, because I mean, if he were to answer that question, he would essentially be, dividing his base, the moderates and the people on the farther left, and I understand why he decided not to answer that question.
I want to take the conversation now to another noteworthy moment from Tuesday's debate. Maddie, you touched on this earlier. Chris Wallace asked President Trump if he would condemn white supremacy in the United States. He told the Proud Boys, which is a far-right, neo-fascist, male-only organization, to, quote, stand back and stand by. This was, of course, in response to Chris Wallace asking the president if he would condemn white supremacy. So I want to put the question out there. What do you think this means for the next over 30 days? What do you think that answer, how do you think that answer is going to reflect on President Trump, those undecided voters, especially those suburban, that sliver of suburban women who the president is really vying for? And how do you think that's going to affect this final sprint until November? Maddie, I'll throw it to you first since you touched on it earlier.
Yeah, I mean, just to preface this entire conversation, I want to touch on two things very quickly. First of all, the fact that we're talking about whether Black Lives Matter as a debate topic for a presidential debate is ridiculous, and the fact that race in America had to be a topic last night was really upsetting and disheartening for a lot of people. Not that it's not an important issue, but I just wanted to say that, and I also wanted to say that it shouldn't have been a conversation about race in America. It should have been a conversation about combating racism in America, and I think that phrasing was not necessarily the best in terms of Chris Wallace's assembling of the debate. But to answer your question,
understood. Right. What did you think about the president's comments?
Right. I mean, we've seen the Proud Boys are celebrating on social media. They're taking it as a call to action. Again, Trump had the distinct opportunity. He had moments of silence. He had Biden and Chris giving him the floor saying, do you condone white supremacy? Go ahead. Or excuse me, do you condemn white supremacy? Go ahead. And he said, sure, but, and then deflected it and talked about Antifa and these leftist groups. And so I think that the fact that Trump refused to say that the blatant hatred and racism and violence towards Black Americans, the fact that he refused to do that is sickening. But honestly, I understand why he did it, because that's his base. His base is people who are feeling racial resentment. Is how he won in 2016. And I think that it's going to light fires under both bases. I think that his white supremacist base is excited, and I think that people on the left are so infuriated. I think it's going to really further encourage people to be protesting these issues and also go to the polls on the 3rd.
So Patrick, that's how I wanted to phrase this question to you, because I'm not going to ask you to defend the president's comments. Not going to ask you to do that. But what I want to ask you is, this comment was directly playing into the president's base, as Maddie had mentioned. He also made other outreaches to the base. He mentioned Joe Biden as being a socialist. He brought in Medicare for all, the Green New Deal, law and order. Throughout the debate on Tuesday, the president made a lot of connections to his base, but he didn't do it so much with those voters that he still needs. It's been shown in poll after poll that the president cannot win in 2020 with only his base. He needs to appeal to some of those independent voters that left him from 2016, especially suburban women who supported him in 2016 and now are leaving his side. So do you think that the president made a mistake in only really appealing to his base during this debate and not making more of an outreach to people who are outside of that base and independent voters that he needed to court, and moderate voters who he needed to court to secure a win in November? Do you think that this was a mistake on his part?
I think it was a mistake not to decisively and clearly condemn the Proud Boys. I think there's a long history of white supremacy not being explicitly denounced by politicians in the past. And I think this was a clear opportunity for him to do it. He has done it in the past, so it's not beyond his reach. I would say, however, that it is a little bit dangerous to conflate the Proud Boys with the base of the president, because obviously the Proud Boys are a very small fringe group, and they're a hate group, and millions of Americans voted for the president. I wouldn't want to conflate the two groups, because obviously there's a big difference between these fringe extremists and the millions of Americans who voted for him in the last election and the millions who will vote for him again. So I think There are two distinct things. I think he should join with other GOP leaders in condemning white supremacy and these groups, because there's no parsing words. It's absolutely a tactical error. It's also a moral failing to not do it. It's politically not advantageous. It's not good for the country either.
But wouldn't you say that after this debate, after him having the opportunity to condemn white supremacy and didn't, wouldn't you agree that at this point, if it's not already proven at this point, but especially at this point, would you not say that if you vote for Donald Trump, you may not be, a Proud Boy, but you are enabling a racist president? So would you not say that at this point, if you were to vote for Trump, you are allowing a racist America to go on?
No, I wouldn't say that, because there's millions of people that are going to vote for him. There's millions of people that aren't racist that are voting for him. And I don't think that anyone is served by characterizing 60 million Americans as racist or comparable to the Proud Boys, because there's a lot of people who look at the policies that Joe Biden has supported over the past 47 years, where their jobs have been essentially sold off to the highest bidder, to big corporations that are transnational. And they're going to say, why should I vote for Joe Biden? And they're not racist for making those decent criticisms. They're hardworking people that shouldn't be compared to a fringe organization that only gained notoriety because Joe Biden brought up the Proud Boys as an example of a group that he should condemn. I mean, if the Proud Boys hadn't been listed as a group that Joe Biden suggested, it's unlikely that they'd have the notoriety and the new recruits today that they do.
I want to move on to another topic. I know we could talk about this for hours, but I have more to get to. I want to move on to another noteworthy moment during Tuesday's debate, and that was when Chris Wallace asked each candidate if they would urge their supporters to remain calm in November when the votes are still being casted and counted, and wait to declare victory until the results have been independently certified. VP Biden agreed to abide by the results and remain calm, but President Trump refused. So what I want to ask is, the American people are already nervous about November 3rd because they know that the ballots are going to take, that there's not going to be a declared winner on November 3rd, most likely. The ballots may take a couple extra days, possibly a couple extra weeks. So what I want to ask is, did the president's sentiment here and rhetoric here exacerbate the fears of the American people and make people more nervous about what could be coming in November?
Absolutely. I think it was the wrong thing to do. A lot of people are concerned. They're seeing stories of small amounts of people receiving ballots for, those who don't live there anymore. So I think it's important that both candidates, and the president declined to do this, but both candidates need to emphasize that we should wait until the results are certified. I believe it's Michigan, is accepting ballots until November 17th, and that's going to be one of the key states that decides this election. So I think both candidates need to follow the leadership of, Mitch McConnell and Chuck Schumer, and basically say, we will follow what the will of the people has, on the election in all these different states that have different deadlines. I think he should just say, we'll wait until the winners are certified. And it's honestly one of the biggest things that Russia, China, and Iran want are for people to doubt the integrity of our elections. There's no way to tamper with the voting systems, even though they say that there's been, attempts to intrude. There's no evidence that any of the votes have been tampered with. So I think it's absolutely ridiculous that the president wouldn't, go ahead. He's not going to say that he's, illegitimately reelected if he is. So I think it serves him. It serves all of the candidates on both sides of the aisle that we just accept the results of the election. People are taking precautions. I know personally, the registrars of voters in Connecticut are working, as long hours as they can to make sure that they're prepared for mail-in ballots and for in-person voting to be done in a safe way. I think the president should just follow Mitch McConnell's lead on this and reassure his supporters that things are absolutely being done to make sure the election is safe and secure.
Maddie, did these comments increase the fear in the American voters about the election results in November?
I think that this is what Trump does, is he fuels his elections on fear and on suppressing the votes of people he knows are not going to support him. Voter suppression has been going on for forever. And I worked for Charles Booker's campaign this past summer for, he was running for U.S. Senate against Amy McGrath, hoping to take on Mitch McConnell. And I was working, Louisville as a city, Louisville is the biggest city in Kentucky, is extremely segregated. And, even when I was working for his campaign, you see people in the West End, which is white, predominantly white, you know, no one had an issue with their mail-in ballots. It was all good, all fine. You go to the West End, which is predominantly African American, probably Latinx, and people aren't getting their ballots. People are being told to call a number that's disconnected. And I mean, I think that, again, I agree with Patrick that everything that Trump said last night about, you know, mailmen selling ballots and whatever happened in Philly with you know, the poll watchers, it's all just lies. And it's all just trying to scare people. And I think the most important thing that Biden and that the Democrats can do right now, and I think he did it well last night, is just be calm and just say, this is our democracy. There's no way this one person, this one silly person can wreck that. And that's what's going to be important, is that it's going to be even more important for Biden to win and win good, to, you know, assure everyone that this election was fair. But again, you know, this all goes back to the fact that there's no fraud that exists. The military's been voting by mail for years. Trump votes by mail. And fraud has never been a legitimate issue. It's just something that Republicans made up to scare people away from voting. And, you know, they're trying to suppress those mail-in ballots, to suppress those votes of people of color.
Unfortunately, we're out of time. We're going to have to end our debate there. But Patrick Burland, Maddie Goldstein, thank you both so much for joining us. I must say, the candidates and the debate, the Commission on Presidential Debates, should be looking at this conversation right here for a model for what presidential debate should look like and for what civil discourse is. And I think that you guys did that great. So I really appreciate you both coming on and sharing your views. A quick programming note before we go. Usually this is a part of the episode where we bring you our debate fact check. Our fact checker comes on air, lets us know what statements were made incorrectly during the debate. Rest assured, our fact checkers are still working behind the scenes, checking the validity of the statements made. However, instead of coming on air, we'll be putting our debate fact check on Facebook in the comment section and on YouTube in the description section. So be sure to check out our debate fact check on Facebook in the comment section and on YouTube in the description. And that's all the time we have for this episode of Colonial Crossfire. Be sure to check us out online at www.gw-tv.com and follow us on Twitter and Instagram and like us on Facebook. And if you have strong political beliefs and want to voice them to the GW community, please let the Crossfire team know via email or social media. We would love to have you on the show. For all of us here at GW-TV, I'm Michael Schnell. Social distance, wear a mask, practice civil discourse, and we'll see you right back here next time.